Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Elena, your host for today. If you're new here, I'd like to let you know that we upload a brand new English learning video every single day to help you improve your English quickly and confidently. In today's episode, we are taking a major step forward in your fluency journey. We're moving beyond the common, everyday phrases and diving deep into the expressions that will make you sound truly advanced and articulate. Today's lesson is packed with incredible value because we're focusing on a very practical and powerful topic: 90 advanced English phrases for daily conversation. These phrases are essential for sounding more natural, precise, and confident, especially in professional or nuanced social situations. Whether you're in a business meeting, having a deep conversation with friends, or simply want to express yourself with more color and accuracy, these phrases will give you the tools you need. You'll hear lots of practice examples and short dialogues, so you can learn how to use each phrase naturally in real situations. I'll guide you through everything step by step. So, by the end of this video, you'll feel more prepared and more confident in your ability to handle any conversation in English. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon if you want more helpful English learning lessons like this one. All right, grab a pen and paper and let's get started. Let's begin with a group of phrases that are perfect for expressing your opinions and engaging in discussions. First up is a very polite and formal way to state your disagreement. I beg to differ. At its core, this phrase means I disagree. However, its tone is much softer and more respectful than a direct contradiction. By saying I beg, you are framing your disagreement as a humble request to present an alternative viewpoint. This phrase is most appropriate in formal or professional settings where showing respect is crucial. Imagine a scenario in a history class discussion about a novel. A student might say, I think the main character's actions were purely selfish. The professor could then reply, that's an interesting perspective. However, I beg to differ. If we look at chapter 3, her motivations seem to be more about protecting her family than personal gain. Next, let's look at a phrase for perfect agreement: being on the same wavelength. This means you are thinking in a very similar way to someone else, to the point where you understand them almost intuitively. It's more than just agreeing on a topic. It suggests a deep, harmonious connection in your thought processes. This is a warm and positive phrase perfect for describing a great connection with a friend or collaborator. For example, imagine two designers, Chloe and Liam, are brainstorming ideas for a new logo. Chloe says, what if we use a minimalist design with clean lines and a simple color palette? Liam could smile and reply, that's exactly what I was about to sketch. This is great. We're completely on the same wavelength today. Here's an enthusiastic way to show total agreement. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is a common, slightly dramatic expression used when someone says the exact thing you were just about to say. It conveys a sense of surprise and strong agreement. This is best used in informal or semi-formal conversations. Let's imagine a scenario where you and a friend are watching a movie and a plot twist is revealed. Your friend might exclaim, I knew it! I had a feeling that character was not who he seemed to be. You could then reply, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say the same thing. Now for a wonderfully visual phrase for expressing indecision. On the fence. To be on the fence means you are undecided between two or more choices. The phrase creates a powerful mental image of a person sitting on top of a fence, unable or unwilling to jump down into either yard. This is an extremely common phrase for any situation where you feel undecided. And because it's neutral, you can use it in both casual and professional contexts. For instance, a colleague might ask you about a potential career move saying, "So, are you going to accept the transfer to the new branch?" You could reply, "I'm still on the fence." The promotion is tempting, but it would mean moving to a new city. Another crucial phrase for critical thinking and discussions is to play devil's advocate. When you play devil's advocate, you intentionally present an opposing viewpoint. Not because you believe it, but to test the strength of the original argument. Oh, it's a sign of strategic thinking, not genuine opposition. This is most powerful in formal settings like business meetings or debates. Let's look at a scenario. A team is discussing a new project and the team lead says, "Our plan is solid and our timeline is achievable." You could then reply, "I agree it's a strong plan, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. What if we lose a key team member midway through the project? Do we have a backup plan?" Let's move on to a wise phrase for evaluating information. To take something with a grain of salt. This phrase means you should not believe something completely because it may be exaggerated, biased, or untrue. It advises a healthy dose of skepticism. This is fantastic for discussing information that is not completely reliable, such as gossip or a sales pitch that sounds too good to be true. For example, your friend is excited about a new online course and says, "I saw an ad that says, this course will make me a data scientist in just 6 weeks. You could reply, "That sounds interesting, but I would take that claim with a grain of salt." It usually takes much longer to develop those skills. When someone is perfectly correct about something, you can tell them they hit the nail on the head. This idiom means to be exactly right about something or to describe a situation perfectly. This is a common and positive phrase you can use in almost any context to show you completely agree with someone's assessment. Imagine two colleagues are trying to figure out why a project is behind schedule. One suggests, "Maybe the tasks are too difficult." The other says, "I don't think so." The problem is that we have too many meetings, so we don't have enough time to actually work. You could then jump in and say, "You've hit the nail on the head." That's the real issue. Another phrase to express a difficult internal conflict is "I'm torn." Similar to "on the fence," being torn means you are unable to decide, but it often implies a more emotional or difficult struggle between two equally compelling options. You should use this when a decision is not just a matter of logic, but also of the heart. For instance, you've been offered a promotion that requires you to work much longer hours. Your partner might ask, "Have you decided if you'll accept the promotion?" You could reply, "I'm torn. The extra money would be a huge help, but I'm worried I'd never have time to spend with the family." Next is a phrase used to introduce an obvious point for emphasis. It goes without saying. This phrase precedes a statement that is so obvious it shouldn't need to be mentioned, but you're stating it to emphasize its importance. This is common in both formal and informal speech. For example, a manager briefing a team before a major client presentation might say, It goes without saying that everyone should be professionally dressed and arrive 15 minutes early. Now let's talk about the presentation content. Another advanced skill is to read between the lines. This means to infer a meaning that isn't explicitly stated. It's about understanding the subtext, hints, and unspoken feelings behind someone's words. You should use this when analyzing someone's communication to find their true meaning. For example, you are discussing an email from a client. Your colleague might say, "The client's email says they are satisfied with our work, but the tone seems a bit cold." You could reply, "I agree." Reading between the lines, I think they're not thrilled and are politely telling us we need to do better on the next phase. Sometimes you are unable to help in a situation due to rules or factors beyond your control. In this case, you can say, "My hands are tied." This phrase means you are unable to act or help, and it's a way to express regret while explaining that the decision is not yours to make. This is often used in customer service or bureaucratic situations. Imagine a customer wants to return an item without a receipt and asks, "Can't you just make an exception this one time?" The store employee might reply, "I'm very sorry, but our store policy requires a receipt for all returns. I'd love to help you, but my hands are tied." A very common conversational phrase is "fair enough." You say this to acknowledge that a point someone has made is reasonable, acceptable, or understandable. It signals that you are conceding the point and will not argue with it further. It's very common in informal, everyday conversations. For example, you ask your roommate, "Can you help me with the dishes?" They reply, "I can't right now. I have to finish this assignment." You can say, "Fair enough. I'll do them." Next is the exclamation, "Tell me about it." This is an informal phrase used to show you strongly agree with and understand someone's frustration because you've had the same experience. It paradoxically means you don't need to tell me more because I understand so completely. For instance, if your friend says, "My commute to work this morning was terrible," you can reply, "Tell me about it." "The traffic was a nightmare." When something is an absolute certainty, you can call it a given. This refers to something that is an accepted fact or a basic assumption that doesn't need to be discussed. You should use this to quickly acknowledge an obvious part of a situation before moving on to a more interesting point. Imagine two entrepreneurs discussing a new business venture. One says, "This new venture is going to be incredibly risky." The other could reply, "Well, that's a given." All startups are risky. The real question is whether the potential reward justifies that risk. Our final phrase in this section is a polite way to offer an opinion. "For what it's worth." This is a humble phrase used to introduce an opinion or piece of advice while acknowledging that it may not be very important or may not be taken. This is perfect for offering unsolicited advice or sharing an opinion in a sensitive situation. Let's imagine your friend is stressed about a decision they have already made and says, "I just don't know if I made the right choice by quitting my job." You could reply gently, "For what it's worth, I've always admired your courage, and I think you did what was best for your happiness. Now let's shift our focus to the professional world." These expressions are essential for sounding confident, competent, and fluent in any workplace environment. First up is a very common and energetic phrase used to start something, to get the ball rolling. This idiom means to initiate an action, begin a project, or start a process. It creates a powerful sense of momentum and forward movement. This is the perfect phrase to use at the beginning of a meeting or the kickoff of a new project. For example, a project manager, David, might lead the first meeting for a new marketing campaign by saying, "Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. We have a lot of great ideas on the table for this campaign. To get the ball rolling, let's start by assigning some initial research tasks." Next is a crucial phrase for effective team communication: to keep me in the loop. This phrase is a professional way of saying, keep me informed. The loop is a metaphor for the circle of people with current information. This is extremely common in any workplace. Imagine you are a manager talking to your team member, Sarah, before a business trip. You could say, "Sarah, while I'm away, you'll be in charge of the client negotiations." After she agrees, you could add, "Great. I don't need to approve every small decision, but please keep me in the loop by sending me a brief email summary at the end of each day." Here is a direct and efficient phrase for when time is limited: to cut to the chase. This idiom means to get to the most important point of a discussion without wasting time. The phrase has a sense of urgency. This is perfect for meetings or conversations where you are short on time, but be mindful of your tone. For instance, you have a 15-minute meeting scheduled with your boss. Your boss starts by making small talk. You might politely say, "I appreciate you asking. My weekend was great. However, I know you have another meeting right after this, so perhaps we should cut to the chase. The main reason I wanted to speak with you was about the budget for the new project." Here's a powerful phrase for facing difficult situations: to bite the bullet. In a workplace, this means to face a necessary but unpleasant business decision with courage. It implies that other, easier options have been considered and have failed. This is used for significant, unpleasant business decisions like budget cuts or layoffs. For example, the co-founders of a startup are reviewing their finances. One might say, "Our server costs are just too high." The other could sigh and say, "I know. The migration process to a cheaper provider is going to be a huge amount of work." The first could then reply, "We have no choice. We have to bite the bullet. It will be painful for a week, but it will save the company in the long run." Now for a very positive phrase used to describe exceptional effort: to go the extra mile. This means to do more than is required or expected of you. It implies a high level of dedication and personal commitment. This is a wonderful compliment to give a colleague or an employee. For example, a manager giving a performance review might say, "Tom, I wanted to mention your work on the Miller account. You really went the extra mile by staying late and anticipating their needs, and it made all the difference." Next, let's look at a very common piece of corporate jargon: to touch base. This phrase means to make brief contact with someone, usually to check in or get an update. It's used constantly in professional environments to schedule a quick, informal conversation. For instance, you're working on a long-term project. You could send your manager an email saying, "Hi, Jane. I've completed the initial research phase. I was hoping we could touch base for 10 to 15 minutes this afternoon so I can show you my findings." A phrase that signals the end of work is to call it a day. This simply means to decide to stop working for the day. It implies that you have done enough work, or that it's a natural stopping point. This is a friendly and common way to announce that you are leaving work. Imagine it's 5:30 p.m. and you and your colleague have been working hard. You could say, "Okay, I think we've made a lot of great progress. The rest can wait until tomorrow. What do you say we call it a day?" Your colleague might then reply, "Sounds good to me." I'm exhausted. Here's the essential phrase for when a plan fails completely. To go back to the drawing board. This means to start a plan all over again from the beginning because the first attempt was a complete failure. It's not about making a small fix. It's about acknowledging that the core concept was flawed. This is most common in project management, design, and creative fields. Imagine a car design team presents their new concept to the CEO who says, "I'm sorry, but this design is not what we're looking for." The lead designer could then say to the team, "Well, you heard him. It's time to go back to the drawing board." This is the classic phrase for getting started in a new role. To learn the ropes. This means to learn the basic and essential procedures and skills required for a new job. This is most often used by or about new employees who are in the training phase of their job. For example, on your first week at a new company, your manager might introduce you by saying, "Everyone, this is Elena, our new marketing coordinator. She'll be spending this first week learning the ropes of our specific systems, so please give her all the support she needs." Next is a phrase that describes someone who follows rules perfectly, by the book. To do something by the book means to do it in strict accordance with all the official rules and procedures. It implies precision and thoroughness. This is often used to describe work related to safety, finance, or law. For example, two colleagues are discussing the company's new safety inspector. One might ask, "How is the new inspector?" The other could reply, "He is incredibly thorough. He does everything strictly by the book." The negative opposite of doing things by the book is to cut corners. To cut corners means to do something in the cheapest, fastest, or easiest way possible, resulting in a sacrifice of quality or safety. This is a critical phrase used to warn against taking dangerous shortcuts. For example, a construction manager speaking to his team might say, "I want to be very clear. Our reputation is built on quality. We will never cut corners by using cheaper materials, no matter how tight the deadline is." Let's look at a motivational phrase about setting higher standards: to raise the bar. To raise the bar means to set a new higher standard of performance or quality. This phrase is associated with excellence and continuous improvement. It's a great phrase for business, sports, and personal development. For instance, a market analyst might say, "With this launch, the company has officially raised the bar for what consumers will expect in this category." Here is a very popular modern phrase for creativity: to think outside the box. To think outside the box means to think creatively and unconventionally, moving beyond the obvious or traditional solutions. The box represents the constraints of normal thinking. This is a cornerstone of conversations about innovation and problem solving. For instance, a marketing team is struggling to come up with a new campaign. The team leader might say, "Boys, we've tried all the usual ideas. For this next hour, I want everyone to forget the budget and just think outside the box. No idea is too crazy." This next phrase is for when you need to deprioritize something. On the back burner. To put something on the back burner is to temporarily give it low priority. The project isn't canceled, just postponed. This is a common professional phrase used to explain that something is not being actively worked on right now. A manager giving a status update to their team might say, "I know we were all excited to start the office redesign. However, we've just landed a huge new client, and that must be our top priority. We'll have to put the redesign on the back burner for the next few months." This phrase is for a plan with a low chance of success, a long shot. A long shot is an attempt or a plan that has a very small chance of succeeding, but is still considered worth trying. This is used to acknowledge risk and manage expectations. Imagine two entrepreneurs are discussing applying for a very competitive grant. One asks, "Do you really think we have a chance?" Hundreds of companies apply for this. The other could reply, "Honestly, it's a long shot." But our idea is unique. If we write a perfect application, we just might get noticed. This phrase is about using influence to get something done. To pull some strings. To pull some strings means to use your personal influence and connections to make something happen that wouldn't normally be possible. It can have a slightly negative connotation of being unfair, but is often used in a neutral or practical way. For instance, your friend is trying to get a reservation at a very popular restaurant that is booked for months and says, "It's impossible to get a table." You could reply, "My cousin is the assistant manager there. It's no guarantee, but let me see if I can pull some strings for you." Next is a phrase that describes a very difficult struggle, an uphill battle. An uphill battle is a task or struggle that is very difficult and requires great effort, where the circumstances are working against you. This is used to describe a challenge where the odds are against you from the start. For example, a political analyst might comment, "With powerful corporate lobbyists and a divided government, getting this new law passed is going to be a long and difficult uphill battle." This phrase is a way of acknowledging a huge task ahead. My work is cut out for me. This phrase means that you have a very large and difficult task to accomplish. It's not a complaint, but rather a realistic acknowledgement of the scale of the challenge. You can say this when you are assigned a significant and challenging project. For example, you've just been hired as the new manager of a team with very low morale. After your first day, you might tell your partner, "I met the team today. They're good people, but they are completely unmotivated. I definitely have my work is cut out for me." This is a classic phrase for working late. To burn the midnight oil. To burn the midnight oil means to work or study late into the night. This is commonly used by students preparing for exams or by professionals trying to meet a very tight deadline. Imagine your friend looks exhausted on a Friday morning. You might ask, "You look so tired. Did you get any sleep?" They could reply, "Not much. I had to burn the midnight oil to finish my final project report. It was due at 8 a.m. Our final phrase in this section is for creating focus. To get down to business. To get down to business means to stop making small talk and to begin focusing on the main, serious task or topic at hand. It's a transitional phrase that signals a shift in tone from social to professional. This is frequently used by the leader of a meeting to officially start the working portion of the discussion. Imagine a team has gathered for its weekly meeting. After chatting for a few minutes, the team leader might clap her hands lightly and say, "All right, it's great to hear everyone had a good weekend, but we have a packed agenda today. let's get down to business. Now let's move into phrases that will enrich your social conversations and help you describe your relationships with others more vividly. First, when you're in a new group of people and things feel a bit awkward, you can break the ice. This means to say or do something to get a conversation started and make people feel more comfortable. The ice is a metaphor for social stiffness. This is a key social skill. For example, you are at a networking event and you see someone standing alone. You could walk up to them and say, "Hi, I'm Elena." Later, you might tell a friend, "I just asked a simple question about the event to break the ice." When you meet someone and have an immediate connection, you hit it off. This means you quickly and naturally become good friends with someone. It suggests a strong and mutual chemistry. This is a fantastic, positive, and informal phrase for telling stories about meeting new people. For instance, a friend might ask about your new roommate. "So, how is it living with Michael?" You could reply, "It's amazing. I was worried we might not get along, but we hit it off from day one." This is a fun, informal way to talk about revealing secrets, to spill the beans. This idiom means to reveal a secret, often after being persuaded. It's a playful and casual phrase, perfect for informal conversations among friends. Let's look at a scenario. Your friend, Chloe, has just come back from a date. You ask, "So, how did it go?" Chloe replies, "It was nice." You could then say playfully, "Just nice?" "Come on, spill the beans. Are you going to see him again?" This is another phrase about secrets, but with a different nuance. To let the cat out of the bag. This phrase means to reveal a secret, but almost always accidentally or carelessly. It differs from spill the beans, which can be intentional. This is the perfect phrase for telling a story about how a secret plan was discovered by mistake. For instance, you could say, "The surprise party was almost ruined." "My little sister nearly let the cat out of the bag when she asked my mom about her special dinner." When you are feeling incredibly happy, you are on cloud nine. This idiom means to be in a state of extreme happiness or euphoria. You should use this to describe your feelings after a wonderful and significant event. Let's look at a scenario. You see your friend a day after she completed her first marathon. You could ask, "How are you feeling today?" She might reply, "I'm sore, but I don't even care. I've been on cloud nine ever since I crossed that finish line." Here's a phrase for a social mistake. To steal someone's thunder. This means to take attention away from someone else's achievement or important announcement by making a more exciting announcement of your own. It's considered a selfish act. Let's imagine two friends, Maria and Jessica, talking after a party. Jessica might say, "Did you see what happened after David announced his promotion?" Maria could reply, "Yes, his brother immediately announced he and his wife are having a baby." Jessica would then shake her head and say, "Exactly. He completely stole his thunder." To describe a very loyal and supportive relationship, you use the phrase through thick and thin. This phrase means to support someone or stay with them during all times, both good, thick, and bad, thin. This is a beautiful and heartfelt phrase for describing a lifelong friendship or a strong marriage. For instance, giving a speech at a wedding, you might say, "They have been there for each other through thick and thin, and I know that deep bond will make their marriage a strong one." When you want to forgive and forget a past problem, you can say it's water under the bridge. This means the issue is in the past and no longer affects the present. This is the perfect phrase to use when someone apologizes for an old mistake. Let's look at a scenario. You run into an old friend after a serious argument years ago. The friend says, "Listen, I have always felt terrible about that argument." You can reply with a warm smile. "Please don't even think about it." That's all water under the bridge now. Similarly, if you want to avoid restarting an old argument, it is best to let sleeping dogs lie. This idiom means to deliberately avoid bringing up an old issue that is currently dormant. This is excellent advice for navigating delicate family dynamics or old workplace disputes. Imagine you are having dinner with your parents and you remember an old disagreement they had. You might think to yourself, "I've always wondered what really happened." But then reconsider. Actually, no. Everyone is getting along so well tonight. It's better to let sleeping dogs lie. A very polite way to say you don't enjoy something is, "It's not my cup of tea." This phrase is a gentle and indirect way to say, "I don't like it." It frames your dislike as a matter of personal taste. This is a perfect informal phrase for politely declining an invitation. For instance, a friend invites you to a heavy metal concert. You could say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but that kind of music is really not my cup of tea." When you are learning a new skill, you need time to get the hang of it. This phrase means to gradually learn the proper way to do something, to become competent through practice. This is a very common, informal phrase used to describe the process of learning any new skill. Let's look at a scenario. You are teaching your friend how to cook. Your friend says, "I'm so slow at chopping these vegetables." You can encourage them by saying, "Don't worry, it's tricky at first." After a few more times, you'll get the hang of it. To describe something that happens very rarely, you can say it happens once in a blue moon. This idiom emphasizes the extreme infrequency of an event. A blue moon refers to the rare occurrence of a second full moon within a single calendar month. For example, your friend might ask if you ever go camping. You could reply, "I used to go a lot as a kid, but now with work and family, I only get the chance to go camping once in a blue moon." A very important piece of advice is to not judge a book by its cover. This means you shouldn't form an opinion on someone or something based solely on its outward appearance. The phrase warns against making premature judgments. Let's look at a scenario. You are considering a new restaurant for dinner, but your friend is hesitant, saying, "I don't know about that place. It looks a bit old from the outside." You could reply, "You can't judge a book by its cover. I read reviews online and everyone says it has the most delicious food in the city." When something finally happens after a long delay, you can say better late than never. This proverb expresses relief or acceptance that something has finally happened, even though it was delayed. This is used to respond to a late arrival or a late apology in a positive way. Imagine your friend forgot your birthday but sends you a gift a week later. You can say, "Thank you so much. Better late than never." When you meet with someone you haven't seen in a while, your goal is to catch up. To catch up means to talk with someone and find out what has been happening in their life since you last saw them. This is an extremely common social phrase used to propose a meeting with an old friend. For example, you see a friend from university on the street and say, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, it's been ages." She could reply, "I know. It's so good to see you. We have to catch up properly. Are you free for a coffee sometime next week?" And the perfect question to start that conversation is, "What have you been up to?" This is a friendly and open-ended way to ask someone what they have been doing in their life recently. Oh, it's much more natural than "How are you?" for someone you haven't seen in a long time. So when you sit down for that coffee with your old friend, you can smile and say, "So, it is so good to see you. Tell me everything. What have you been up to for the last 5 years?" Now let's learn some vivid phrases to describe the world and people around us. First is a wonderfully optimistic phrase for finding the good in a bad situation. A blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise is something that seems unfortunate at first, but which ultimately results in a positive outcome. This phrase is used for looking back on a difficult experience and realizing the good that it led to. Imagine two old friends catching up. One says, "I was so devastated when I didn't get into my first choice university." The other could reply, "But you ended up going to that amazing school in the city." The first friend would agree, "Exactly. Not getting what I thought I wanted was a blessing in disguise. I met my husband there." To show a strong contrast between two things, you can say one is a far cry from the other. This phrase means very different from and is used to emphasize a significant difference. For instance, you are describing your new job to your family. Your mother might ask, "So is your new job as stressful as your last one?" You could reply, "Not at all. The atmosphere is so supportive. It's a far cry from the toxic environment at my old company." This next phrase describes an ideal situation, the best of both worlds. This refers to a situation in which you can enjoy the advantages of two very different things at the same time. This is used to describe a perfect compromise. Let's imagine your friend is describing her new living situation. She says, "I moved to a small town just outside the city. It's quiet and peaceful, but I can take a 20-minute train ride and be right in the center of all the action." You could reply, "Wow, that sounds perfect." You have the best of both worlds. This phrase is for something that is normal or expected, par for the course. This means that something, especially a difficulty, is what is normal or expected in a given situation. This is used to express that a particular challenge is not unusual for a certain activity. For instance, you are a software developer talking to a new intern who says, "I was working on the code last night, and a huge, unexpected bug appeared. It was so stressful." You can reply with a knowing smile, "Don't worry about it." Finding a major bug right before a deadline is pretty much par for the course in this job. To describe someone who acts instantly, you can say they do it at the drop of a hat. This idiom means to do something immediately without any hesitation or prior planning. It suggests a high degree of readiness or spontaneity. This phrase is used to describe someone who is always ready for action or travel. For example, you are describing your very adventurous friend to someone, "She is the most spontaneous person I know. If you called her and asked her to fly to Paris tomorrow, she would say yes at the drop of a hat." Here is a great American idiom for describing something that is very common. A dime a dozen. If something is a dime a dozen, it means it is extremely common. and therefore not of any special value. It carries a slightly dismissive tone. This is an informal phrase used to describe anything you consider to be overabundant or generic. For example, a business mentor giving advice to a young entrepreneur might say, "You need to figure out what makes your business unique." Smartphone apps are a dime a dozen these days. This phrase describes taking on too much responsibility. To bite off more than you can chew? This idiom means to take on a project or a commitment that is too large or difficult for you to handle. You can use this to describe your own state of being overwhelmed or to caution someone against taking on too many tasks. Let's look at a scenario. Your friend is complaining about being stressed, saying, "I'm so exhausted. I'm working a full-time job, taking 2 evening classes, and I just volunteered to organize a huge community event." You can gently reply, "It sounds like you may have bitten off more than you can chew." This is a classic, humorous idiom for talking about something very expensive, to cost an arm and a leg. If something costs an arm and a leg, it is extremely expensive. This is a form of hyperbole or exaggeration. This is an informal phrase used in everyday conversation to describe the high price of goods or services. For instance, you are talking with a friend about your recent vacation. Your friend asks, "How was your trip to Switzerland?" You could reply, "It was absolutely incredible. But be prepared if you go. It costs an arm and a leg." Here is a famous optimistic proverb, "Every cloud has a silver lining." This means that there is something hopeful and positive to be found in every negative situation. This is an encouraging and optimistic proverb used to comfort someone who is facing adversity. Let's look at a scenario. Your friend is upset because their long-planned trip was canceled. They say, "I'm so disappointed." You can comfort them by saying, "I know it's frustrating, but try to remember that every cloud has a silver lining. Maybe now you can use that money for something else." Next is a very common phrase for when you are not feeling well, to feel under the weather. This is a gentle, slightly informal way to say that you are feeling ill, sick, or unwell. It's often used for minor illnesses like a cold or a headache. This is perfect for everyday use. For instance, your colleague Sarah notices that you seem tired at work and asks, "Hi, Elena, is everything all right?" You could reply, "Hi, Sarah. I'm okay. Thank you for asking. I'm just feeling a bit under the weather today." Here's a humorous way of saying something is not difficult. It's not rocket science. This phrase is used often sarcastically to emphasize that a task is very simple and easy to understand. This is an informal phrase. Imagine your friend is struggling to assemble a simple piece of furniture and says, "I can't figure these instructions out." This is impossible. You can look at the instructions and say with a smile, "Come on, just match the letters." It's not rocket science. This phrase describes a breaking point. The last straw. The last straw is the final in a series of annoying or negative events that makes you lose your patience and finally take action. This is used to describe the moment you reach your limit in a frustrating situation. For instance, you are telling a friend why you quit your job. You say, "My boss was always critical and the hours were too long. Then, yesterday, he blamed me for his mistake in front of the whole team. That was the last straw. I quit this morning." This phrase describes the experience of having a bad situation made even worse. To add insult to injury. To add insult to injury means that a second unfortunate event happens on top of an already bad one, making the person feel even worse. This is a common phrase for telling stories about a string of bad luck. For example, your friend is telling you about their terrible morning. They say, "I was already running late for my job interview. Then I spilled coffee all over my white shirt. And to add insult to injury, when I finally got into my car, I realized the battery was dead." This is a wonderfully visual phrase for being mistaken. To be barking up the wrong tree. If you are barking up the wrong tree, you are pursuing a mistaken course of action, following a wrong lead, or accusing the wrong person. This is a great way to tell someone that their assumption or accusation is completely wrong. Imagine a manager is upset and is questioning an employee, Tom. The manager says, "Tom, I'm very disappointed. Why didn't you submit the weekly report?" Tom replies respectfully, "I think you're barking up the wrong tree. Sarah took over that report last month." Here is a wonderful compliment for a person. Down to earth. A person who is down to earth is practical, realistic, and without pretension. They are easy to talk to and act like a normal person, regardless of their status. This is a very positive and warm compliment used to describe someone's personality. For instance, two people are talking about the CEO of their company. One says, "I was so nervous to meet the CEO, but she was wonderful." The other asks, "What was she like?" The first replies, "She was so down to earth. She just sat with us at lunch and asked us about our families." When something fails spectacularly, it goes down in flames. This phrase means to fail in a very dramatic, public, and often disastrous way. It doesn't describe a quiet or minor failure, but a complete catastrophe. This is used to describe a very public failure, such as a failed business venture or a political campaign. Let's look at a scenario. You are discussing a new restaurant that closed after only 1 month. You say, "What happened to that new fusion restaurant?" Your friend replies, "It was a disaster. The service was terrible. The food was overpriced. The whole business went down in flames." This is a classic exclamation for a surprising connection. It's a small world. This is an expression of surprise used when you meet someone you know in a very unexpected place, or when you discover that you have a surprising connection with a stranger. This is a very common and friendly exclamation used in social situations. For instance, you are on vacation in Italy and you run into your old neighbor. You would exclaim, "Mr. Smith? Is that you? I can't believe it." It's a small world. This is a memorable idiom for describing social tension. The elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is a major, obvious problem that everyone is aware of, but nobody wants to talk about. You use this phrase to describe the unspoken tension in a situation. For example, a company is having a year-end party. Everyone knows the company has had a terrible year, but no one is mentioning it. One employee might whisper to another, "This is so strange. Everyone is acting happy, but no one has mentioned the terrible sales figures." The other could whisper back, "I know." It's the classic elephant in the room. And finally, this phrase describes a refreshing break from routine. A change of pace? A change of pace is an activity that is different from what you normally do. It implies that this new activity is a welcome break from the monotony of your usual routine. You use this to explain why you are trying something new. For example, your friend is surprised that you've started taking a pottery class and says, "I never knew you were interested in pottery." You could reply, "I wasn't really, but I spend all day working on a computer, so I wanted to do something creative with my hands for a change of pace." Our final category is all about how we make decisions and take action. When you don't have a firm plan and prefer to improvise, you play it by ear. This means you choose not to make a firm plan in advance. Instead, you will decide what to do as the situation develops. This is a very common, informal phrase used for making casual plans that shows you are relaxed and flexible. For example, you are making plans to meet a friend on Saturday. Your friend asks, "What time should we meet, and what do you want to do?" You could reply, "I'm not sure what I'll be in the mood for yet. Let's just meet around noon downtown, and we can play it by ear from there." This is a very polite and useful phrase for declining an invitation. To take a rain check. To take a rain check means that you cannot accept an offer or invitation right now, but you would like to accept it at a later time. The phrase softens the rejection because it communicates that you are interested. This is an excellent social phrase for politely refusing an invitation without offending the person who invited you. Imagine a colleague stops by your desk on a Friday and says, "Hey, a group of us are going out for drinks after work. Do you want to join?" You could reply, "I would love to, but I can't tonight. Can I take a rain check? Please keep me in mind for next time." This is a direct and powerful phrase used to transfer responsibility. The ball is in your court. When you tell someone the ball is in your court, you are saying that you have done everything you can, and now it is their turn to make a decision or take the next step. This phrase is used in negotiations and decision-making processes. For example, you are a hiring manager who has just interviewed a strong candidate. You could call the candidate and say, "We were very impressed with your interview and we'd like to formally offer you the position. We have sent the official offer letter to your email." You might conclude by saying, "Please take the weekend to review it. We've made our best offer, so now the ball is in your court." This is a humorous phrase for persuasion, to twist someone's arm. To twist someone's arm means to persuade or convince someone to do something they were initially reluctant to do. It's almost always used in a light-hearted, informal way. You can use this when you are jokingly describing how someone convinced you to do something you secretly wanted to do anyway. Let's look at a scenario. You are at a dinner party and have already said you are too full for dessert. The host says, "Are you sure? I made my famous chocolate lava cake." You could laugh and say, "Okay, you've twisted my arm. I'll have a small slice." When a plan is still undecided, it is up in the air. This phrase means that a plan or issue is still completely undecided, unresolved, or uncertain. This is a very common phrase for talking about plans that have not yet been finalized. For instance, your friend asks about your plans for the New Year's Eve holiday. You could reply, "Honestly, everything is still up in the air. We might go to my parents' house or we might go on a short trip. We haven't decided anything yet." This is a classic idiom for giving up. To throw in the towel. To throw in the towel means to surrender, quit, or admit defeat. The phrase carries a sense of finality, suggesting that you have struggled for a long time but have finally decided you cannot continue. This is used to describe the act of quitting after a long, difficult struggle. Imagine two friends talking about a business. One says, "I tried for 2 years to get my online store off the ground, but I was just losing more and more money." The other asks, "So what happened?" The first friend could reply, "Last month I finally decided to throw in the towel." It was a difficult decision. This phrase describes a high-risk strategy, to go for broke. To go for broke means to risk everything you have in one determined final effort to achieve great success. It implies an all-or-nothing approach. This describes a high-risk, high-reward strategy often used in business or sports. For example, a small technology company is competing against a giant corporation. The CEO might say to her team, "We can't compete with them on budget. Our only chance is to innovate. We're going to invest all our remaining capital into developing this one revolutionary product. We're going for broke." When you change your mind about something significant, you have a change of heart. This means to change your opinion or the way you feel about something, often in a surprising or unexpected way. This is used to describe a reversal of a previous decision, especially a personal one. For instance, your friend was planning to move to another country. You might ask, "So, is your visa application ready?" They could reply, "Actually, I've decided not to go. I had a change of heart. I realized how much I would miss my family." This phrase means to make an exhaustive effort, to leave no stone unturned. To leave no stone unturned means to do everything absolutely possible to find something or to solve a problem. It implies an extremely thorough and diligent search. This is often used by people in authority, like detectives or managers, to promise that their effort will be complete. Imagine a family's beloved pet dog has gone missing. A worried family member says, "What if we never find him?" Another replies with determination, "We will find him. We'll put up posters and search every street. We will leave no stone unturned." This phrase perfectly describes a specific kind of nervousness. To get cold feet. To get cold feet means to suddenly become too nervous or frightened to go through with a planned, significant event. It's a loss of courage right before a major commitment. This is most famously used for weddings, but can be used for any major event. Let's look at a scenario. You are talking to a friend who was supposed to perform at an open mic night. You ask, "I didn't see you on stage last night. What happened?" Your friend might reply, embarrassed, "I know. I was all ready to go, but as I was waiting backstage, I looked out the huge crowd and I just got cold feet." This phrase describes the act of joining a popular trend. To jump on the bandwagon. To jump on the bandwagon means to join an activity or adopt an opinion because it has become very popular. The phrase can sometimes have a slightly negative connotation, implying that the person is joining the trend simply to be part of the crowd. This is used to describe people following trends in fashion, technology, or sports. For example, two friends are discussing a new TV show. One says, "I can't believe how popular that show has become." The other replies, "I know. Now that it has won all those awards, everyone is jumping on the bandwagon." This is a common phrase for a lost opportunity. To miss the boat. To miss the boat means to lose an opportunity to do something by being too slow to act. The image is of someone arriving at the dock just as the boat they were supposed to be on is sailing away. This is a great way to express regret over a missed chance. Let's look at a scenario. You are talking to a friend about a concert. Your friend asks, "Did you get tickets to see the band next month?" You reply with a sigh, "No, I saw they were on sale, but I thought I'd wait a few days. They sold out in an hour. I really missed the boat on that one." This phrase is a piece of advice for waiting patiently. To sit tight. To sit tight means to wait patiently and not take any action until you are told to do so or until the situation changes. It implies that waiting is the best course of action at the moment. This is often used by someone in a position of authority or knowledge to reassure someone who is anxious. For example, you are at an airport and your flight has been delayed. You ask the gate agent, "Should I try to book a different flight?" The agent might reply, "The storm should pass in an hour." For now, the best thing to do is just sit tight. We'll make an announcement soon. This is a classic for managing worry about the future. To cross that bridge when we come to it. To cross that bridge when we come to it means to not worry about a potential future problem, but instead to deal with it only when and if it actually happens. This is a very practical phrase used to calm someone's anxiety and focus on the present. Imagine two team members are planning an event. One says, "But what if it rains on that day?" The other replies, "That's a valid concern, but let's focus on the invitations first. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." This is a famous proverb about the importance of deeds. Actions speak louder than words. This means that what you actually do is more important and shows your true character more than what you say you will do. It emphasizes the importance of follow-through over empty promises. This proverb is used to judge a person based on their behavior rather than their promises. For instance, you are complaining to a friend about your partner saying, "He keeps promising he'll help more around the house, but then he never does." Your friend might reply, "Well, you know what they say. Actions speak louder than words." This phrase describes starting something from nothing, from the ground up. To build or start something from the ground up means to start it from the very beginning, with no prior work or foundation in place. It implies a huge amount of effort and determination. This is used to describe building a business, a project, or a skill from its absolute beginning. For instance, you are admiring a successful local business owner. You say, "It's so impressive what she's accomplished." Someone could reply, "She had no help. She built this entire empire from the ground up." This phrase is an explanation for an impulsive action. In the heat of the moment. To say or do something in the heat of the moment means to do it suddenly out of anger, excitement, or passion without thinking rationally. It is used to explain, though not always excuse, an impulsive action. This is often used as part of an apology. Let's look at a scenario. Two friends are making up after an argument. One says, "I can't believe you said that to me." The other could reply, "I know, and I am so sorry. I didn't mean it. I was just so angry and I said it in the heat of the moment." This is a classic for describing efficiency. To kill two birds with one stone. To kill two birds with one stone means to achieve two separate goals with a single action or effort. It's a celebration of cleverness and smart planning. This is a very common and useful phrase for describing any situation where you are able to accomplish two tasks at once. For example, you are explaining your daily routine. A friend asks, "How do you find time to exercise and also practice your English?" You could reply, It's easy. I listen to an English language podcast while I go for my morning run. That way, I killed two birds with one stone. This phrase means to free someone from responsibility. To let someone off the hook. To let someone off the hook means to free them from a duty, punishment, or blame that they were expecting. It implies an act of mercy or forgiveness. You can use this when forgiving someone for a mistake or excusing them from a task. Imagine you and your roommate have a rule that whoever cooks doesn't have to wash the dishes. You say, "I've made a huge dinner, so there are a lot of dishes to wash tonight, sorry." Your roommate could reply, "Don't worry about it. You had a really long day at work. I'll let you off the hook tonight and do them myself." And our final phrase describes losing energy and motivation. To run out of steam. To run out of steam means to lose your energy, enthusiasm, or momentum while doing something. It describes the feeling of being tired and unable to continue with the same level of effort. This is a great phrase to describe the feeling of burnout or exhaustion near the end of a long project or a long day. For example, you are studying for your final exams. Your parent asks, "Are you going to study for a few more hours?" You could reply with a yawn, "I can't. I've been studying for 6 hours straight, and I'm starting to run out of steam. I need to take a break. I know that was a marathon of a lesson, but you made it through." We've covered an incredible number of phrases today. Don't feel overwhelmed. The goal isn't to memorize all 90 at once. I recommend you save this video and come back to it. Choose 1 or 2 phrases from each category this week and try to use them in your conversations. The more you practice, the more these advanced expressions will become a natural part of your vocabulary. Thank you for your amazing dedication and for staying with me until the end. I hope you found this video helpful and that you feel empowered with your new vocabulary. If you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss a new lesson. Remember, consistency is the key to fluency. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next one.